Hafiz, I'm your chair. On government we have Scholar Alam Shah, and on opposition we have ELC International School. On the motion that this House prohibits schools from practicing ability-based streaming, I would like to welcome the Prime Minister to open the case. Thank you.
My ability as an underachieving individual who are subjugated in other classes are shackled by multifactorial factors that exist under status quo. We say we define this debate and what is prohibited. We say we won't allow schools to practice ability-based streamings. We say we actively integrate the intellectuals and the less intellectuals in one class equally, right? The context is, what is the ability-based streaming? We say the ability-based streaming is the practice of separating students by academic performances. It's status quo. We say the problem status quo that these underachieving individuals are under perpetual cycle, that they will always be underachieving. I'll explain to you why in my arguments. To take account of this debate does not happen when these individuals don't want to change. We say this debate only happens when these individuals who are underprivileged and cannot improve their subjugated. So under my first principal argument, why is it an insult to the student? Number one, we said it's hierarchical. That is say that these individuals will now be subjugated and be separated into different classes and different. You also get different types of teachers to always be separated. What happens when these individuals are separated? These smart classes will not only get faster education, and these lower classes will get slower education. We don't think that this should happen. We think that this education that these individuals have should be equal, so that the society has the education happens alongside. But number two, it entrenches dominance. That is to say that there is a perpetual cycle. The smart individuals will always be on top, on world chat. These individuals who are less likely to understand what you teach in a world in which these individuals are scared to understand in our world, right? We say that's less likely to happen, but sure.
Does the government not believe that having different cases would cater to students better?
I'll explain to you and I'll preempt your argument, right? But we say how does it entrenches dominance is when these smart people are not exposed to these individuals who are less able. What happens in our world is a better environment for these individuals. When these individuals, when they are scared to pursue education, we say we create a world in which these individuals should and coerce to have a social skill and to ask what is the problem. We say this debate happens when these individuals want to. So why is that assault to human dignity is bad? Because it systematically undermines individuals when subjugated. When these individuals are less achieving, and when these individuals who are smart will always be on top, when they dominate the school, these individuals who always dominate this school will always have a bad perception to these individuals that I can't help these individuals and I should not help, right? What happens later? Let's just take them at their best. They'll argue how it's better because teacher has a comprehensive account that these individuals who are less able, it's a better environment because these individuals will more or less likely be able to ask questions, right? We say that environment is too risky. Why is it too risky? When these individuals who want to change, when they are forced to be under lower classes, they are prone to complacent. Why? Because you need to understand that this debate also have underachieving individuals who are lazy and underachieving individuals who want to change, right? When these underachieving individuals that want to change, when they are prone to complacent, they can never change on the world chair. We say we want to support a world in which these individuals are more likely to have an incentive. In our world, the environment is competitive. Their side will never have a competitive environment. An environment in which only the smart people dominate the school, dominate the scores, at least under our individuals who are less smart will also try to dominate, try and give their best. We say that incentive under their side will less likely to happen, right? But my second argument, a pragmatic one, While in the underachieving individuals who are more likely to have an incentive to pursue education. Example one, they are surrounded by individuals who are smart. When a class, when they are in chapter 3, for example, and they are still studying chapter 1, these smart people will now coerce and homogenize these individuals and also help, right? We say that is a good environment. Even if they discriminate, we say it is okay. At least under our side, incentive happens, right? What happens to underachieving individuals under their side, right? We say underachieving individuals on their side will always be undermined, will always can never cope. We say under our side, teachers will not be more attentive, and the individuals who are smart will also now put more time to teach their students on social skills alongside will happen, right? Why is it not effective under their side? Because lazy will always be lazy. Under our side, individuals, underachieving individuals who are lazy under our side will at least have better incentive and know and to take account of comprehensive account of what does it mean to have education and what does it mean to be in a class full of smart people. Under our side, sure, if you want to put out the worst case on the side, discrimination happens where individuals are homogenized. We say that acts as an incentive for these individuals to pursue education even better. We say under our side, when underachieving individuals want to change, we say that happens. Alongside, they gain social skills when they also are in a smarter class. What happens under their side is too detrimental to the extent in which these individuals can never change. And even if they were to change to become better, that would be less likely to happen.
Alright, thank you for that speech. So open the case inside opposition, the leader of opposition. Okay.
Side opposition would firstly like to redefine the motion at hand. Redefine ability-based streaming as not the separation of individuals, but instead the allocation of individuals based on their learning capabilities. We believe that status quo is better. Firstly, the government side addressed how it would be demoralizing to these individuals in the lower class. But instead, the opposition side refutes that by saying, by being in this lower class, it is higher chance for them to be motivated to break the cycle, motivated to move higher. Secondly, the government side talked a lot about lazy individuals, how lazy individuals are discriminated, how lazy individuals do not benefit. But let me remind you that lazy individuals will always be lazy, even if they're not in an ability-based situation. Sorry, ability-based system. The opposition side would like to say that having an ability-based system would be easier on the students and easier on the teachers, because in fact it teaches students at a pace that caters to them. It is better for students to go slow than to move rapidly and not understand anything at all. And teachers can teach students much easier in an environment like this. Students are not berated or belittled by their peers when they're in this ability-based situation. Accept it?
It's actually very disruptive on the outside. Because then you want to put lazy students in the same room as people who do want to change, then don't necessarily want to make these people who have hope easier. Don't you think putting lazy people and people who are just slow in reading books in the same class, don't you disincentivize people who want to learn but are just slow to become lazier because they have friends who are lazy?
Referring back to my previous statement, it will in fact be motivation for them. Because if they're in this situation where they're surrounded by people who they believe are much smarter than them, who can do statements that they cannot do, they will get demotivated and they will not be as good as they can potentially be. But when they're in an environment that caters to them, when teachers can talk to them specifically, when teachers can address their issues, can address their problems, it's better for these students as they can escape the cycle. and they can move higher up. Moving back to my previous statement, students won't be belittled or berated by themselves or by their peers because they are no longer in an environment where they feel like they can no longer do anything. For example, I am atrocious at art, and every time I went to art class, I would dread it. There would be students painting murals, painting the Mona Lisa, while I could not even draw a circle. I think that affected me. Did I really want to improve at art when I couldn't even do the basic things? No, I didn't even want to go for art class. I dreaded that class. Now, accepted?
We would say in that particular circumstances, these individuals who are already underachieving are coerced to say out loud that they are problematic, rather than their side, which the individuals which are underachieving are prone to complacent. Please state why is it so justified?
Can you rephrase? Sorry.
We say that under that particular scenario, we coerce individuals and these underachieving individuals to say out loud and that they are problematic. So necessarily create social skills alongside. Tell me why under your side, less and individuals would not be prone to complacency.
Now, side opposition thinks that it's a giant assumption that in the first place, these individuals who are underperforming will just voice out that they're underperforming. The side government really think that an individual who is getting low marks in class will state out their problems outright. No, they are shy. They need to be in a situation that caters to them. They can't actively seek this because there is no outlet for them to seek this. That is why side opposition believes that schools should practice ability-based streaming. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that speech. Let me remind you that kept short, 30 minutes, 30 seconds at least. Now I would like to welcome the Deputy Prime Minister.
We say the upbringing of students should be holistic. That is to say, we need to take a plethora number of students and bring them up. If it means that we are required to drop a few students along the way, we say that is unjustified. Let's see the points the opposition tried to refute our points, and let's see what they got out of it, right? So what my government told you was very important argument about the principle and how it subjugates them through the denial of their rights to education. What they talked about was that they simply gave the justification to this was that students will not be motivated enough to study, hence they will have bad grades. We say this wasn't even a contention to our principal argument, and they directly went to the pragmatic stuff, and that's bad, right? So they didn't touch it out on our first argument. But let's see what other things they want to talk about. So a lot of their things was contingent upon the assumption that students will be less capable will be better off in less capable classes. We told you that the problem that exists with this system is proximity. That when students are put in a bigger proximity compared to other peers that are much smarter than them, it causes problems. What's the first problem? There's no assimilation between smart students and also less capable students. This means that them being shy and them being shamed happens more rapidly at the other side, because now smart students are able to vilify people on the other end of this stick. So the comparative to this is that it is much harder for you to vilify and homogenize people who are less capable than you when they are in closer proximity to this. So the benefits we get from this is that we get better assimilation towards students, better integration. So this means their standard of harm was that they are much more shy. But we questioned them, what was the main cause of the students being much shy around smarter students is because they never get to interact with the smarter students. Like, this is the problem that they never give an end with, right? So that's why it's bad. They want to talk about, secondly, students are demotivated. Firstly, he never told us what was the comparative, right? We see students who are surrounded by other underachieving individuals, given that they made a concession that these are lazy individuals who never had the incentive to improve themselves, will continue into a perpetual cycle, where they never could achieve as high as other individuals, right? So this directly engages with my PM's first principle argument on why it's hierarchical and why it's a perpetual cycle. So first argument, why under our side we create a much more holistic education system or a much more holistic school. So what side opposition needs to defend is a stagnating chart of student performance. Why was this so? The first, there's no traction. More often than not, the Parents Association, namely the PIBG, is largely built by rich parents who lobby for school policies that will only benefit their child. Why? Because money is a zero-sum game. Given that money is a zero-sum game, right? So given that smarter classes require more class to maintain their standard of achievingness, we say that the money that flows into acquiring such classes cannot happen to lower classes. Why? Because it's a zero-sum game, right? But not all teachers are equal. Some teachers who are more capable will only teach and parents will only lobby for them to teach in smarter classes because they're more higher achieving. They will only teach in the echelons of classes. This means less capable teachers are required to go and fill in the spots of less capable classes. Hence, there will be classes that are at a constant and perpetual disadvantage. Notice how rich parents have smart students because they have more capital to get books, they have more capital to get tuition. That's why there's a financial. To some extent there's traction to only give power and only give benefits to smarter classes, right? Because there's lobby power. But secondly, why the harm only exists under our side? Because the matrix of a school success. But before that, the matrix of a school success. How the government gauges a school is good or not is based and awards them is based on the numbers of high achievers, i.e. the plethora of students gaining straight A's in SPM. So more often than not, the school would already have a target amount, say 60 students they want to push for to get straight A's because it's much more systematic to do it that way. This means nearing the exams, schools will only focus on smart individuals, people who can achieve those targets, and hence they will only focus on smart classes. The comparative to that, under our side, is that school cannot handpick students. The exercise given to smart individuals are required to be given to less smarter individuals also because they're in the same class, right? So even if school decides to do it, to still continue their acts of subjugation, that is to only handpick smart students, even if they're assimilated less capable and smart students are assimilated, we say this form of subjugation is much more clear and transparent. This means that parents can question, why are you only giving these exercises to their peers who are smarter? Schools can be scrutiny for them. So we don't allow the school to subjugate them. Let's see a comparative under their side. So what leader of opposition has done throughout the debate is that he has only made assertions and never gave us reasons why students are shy in the first place. We gave you a good account on why students are shy, and the cause of that is because they're not in close proximity to other students. Panel, we say the only way to uplift students and produce a holistic education system is not to subjugate them and view them as equal. With that, I'm proud to propose.
Speech. Now I have to welcome the Deputy Leader of Opposition.
First off, the government mentioned that the students would not interact with the smarter students. The lazy students won't interact with the smarter students, but you never really mentioned why they wouldn't do this. Well, when they're in an area or an environment where they're with other people in their same learning capability, they'd be able to, say, talk to them, and actually this would promote friendship and teamwork to get to this better position, to get to the higher classes. It'll actually motivate them more. You mentioned that it doesn't motivate them. So now, students would in fact be more motivated when they're in these status quota environments. They'd be with students who are in the same capability with them, whilst knowing that there's a higher class to go to. They want to move on. Just because they're lazy doesn't mean they're just going to stay there. Teachers would want the students to get higher, to get better grades, and would in fact tell them to try better, to get to these other classes, to get to the higher classes. And this would in fact, as I said, promote teamwork and friendship and bonding in these one classes, whilst also not minimizing segregation. Because you mentioned that it segregates these classes when you're in status quota. However, this brings about, say, bullying. This could be in the category of bullying, but bullying has always been around in every school. Bullying, there was always segregation, and even in the education system that we have now. Students who are with lower learning capabilities are put down already. This just helps them. This will help them get to the high capability classes. Now to move on to my argument. Accepted.
Would you think teachers limiting the syllabus because they can't cope will necessarily minimize their ability to even pursue the maximum price of education, that is like even completing the syllabus in the first place?
Can you rephrase that?
Okay. Do you consider that necessarily these children who are unable to cope will be limited of the syllabus and necessarily will always be worse off compared to other people?
Do I believe in that? No, they won't be in that same position. They'll move forward. Because they catered to, because the teachers now can move into an optimal pace for them, they can teach them in what and how they want it to be, how they want to be taught. So then it's better for them. They get to be in an environment where the pace of teaching is the best for them. They get to learn with students who are in the same who have the same learning capabilities. Therefore, this actually helps them move forward and get better as a class, not just as one person in one individual in the normal education system that we have now. Now, to move on to my argument, as I was saying, this actually brings about efficiency, a lot of efficiency in the education system. Let me bring about an example. Take Singapore. Singapore has status quota education, and they're known worldwide as high achievers, smartest people in the world. In fact, there's Singaporean students in my school who come to school and completely destroy our classes. They are higher than us in knowledge and not only in academics but also in sports. Now, when I ask them, actually, I say, why, how are you guys so good? And they actually say, I'm not lying to you. They say they don't exactly say they have status quota, but they say their classes are divided into people fit with, and who teaches them in the pace that they want to be taught at. Now, as I was saying, it's more efficient because teachers provide, in the normal education system, teachers are forced to provide one-to-one teaching circumstances with students who are too lazy or who are at a lower learning capability. Now, so this doesn't just destroy learning. I mean, this helps that one person because they're providing teaching to them, but it destroys the learning for everyone else in the class because they're slowing down learning to cater to one student. Okay, and then also provide more effort to that one student, and also the streaming of this will also minimize the one-to-one basis if in status quota, because it's no longer one-to-one, but it's the teacher to the whole class now, because they're in an environment suited to them. The whole class is at the same level. Example actually, and that is tuition. Many of us in Malaysia take tuition as a way to learn better. Tuition is exactly what status quota offers. It is one-to-one learning, and it's teaching at the pace they want to be taught at. This helps them so much. You can see that tuition is actually one of the best ways to get better at the subject when you're lacking behind. That circumstance, that idea into our own education system, into our own schools, and have status quota classes. Thank you.
Thank you for that speech. To end the substantive part of government will.
It's time for us that we don't look at the education system based on what are the grades that you are able to get, and then categorize you based on your achievement. It's time we look at better outcomes out of like whatever that we have in status quo. So what was the problem inside opposition? Opposition completely dismissed our whole idea of peer pressure and our whole idea of how naturally, without the help of teachers, these students will also be able to get a more fruitful form of education. So the biggest problem with their side is that they fail to really give us a proper definition of what their whole mechanism was based upon. They wanted to base upon like slowing their pace, but they didn't tell us how. Then the problem was just that they are slower in education, but that doesn't really warrant being put into a class full of lazy people. We tell you that their definition of their mechanism was very fluffy from the start, which is why it's very it sounds very nice to begin with. So let's talk about the issues. I have one issue. It's about the outcome evaluation and which outcome is much better to pursue. So the government claims that the outcome that they want is the student that we want is students are put into more competitive environments. That is, we concede, they will get pressured. We concede, they will get shy. But we believe that this kind of incentive is an incentive in itself. So their incentive came from teachers catering to students. So now, like underachieving students, we have more of an incentive to engage in class because it is their level. So right now the deadlock is which incentive is much more worthy to pursue. So we tell you that the incentive in government is much more worthy. Why? Because it's much more more personal level. It doesn't just create competition; it encourages goodwill students, and this is the added benefit that we have under our side. They have a natural incentive to create friends. So you can't tell them that you always be shy until they die, because they will also have a natural incentive to create friends when they sit beside smart people. Then necessarily this proximity entails them to creating good support structures. That is, they have a more healthier social environment. And there's much more likeliness for smart people to help these people because they are just in a closer proximity compared to when you live, when you study in very, very far classes. Right? Before I move on, yes.
The social issue. Do you not believe that they would also make friends with people who are similar to them, as opposed to people who are smart?
Then that's necessarily conceding that there is a perpetuation of harm, because we already told you how they make friends with people who are just generally toxic because they are lazy and bad-willed, they don't want to study, and they are put into the same class because they get the same grades. Then that's necessarily a solution mismatch, because if you want them to make friends, by virtue of having friends, then we tell you that having better friends is a much more better trade-off. So what's the parallel? We tell you that gentrification, when poor people live in rich areas, then they necessarily get the benefit of the rich. This can clearly be seen in like the situation in status quo. So what's the comparative on the other side? They want to limit the syllabus for these people because necessarily they think that the problem is that they are just too slow, so the pace is just different. But then they also have to concede that when the pace is different, necessarily the maximum goal of education in their world is less compared to ours. Then what's the problem with this? It does not assess the idea of a student where they also have to take the same exams. In the end of the day, they also have to take SPM. So necessarily when you, like how long are you going to defend this whole idea of pace when in the end of the day you're going to limit the syllabus and make them prone to failing at these like exams in the first place? We tell you that it's unfair disparity in that regard. Yes.
You mentioned the idea of peer pressure before. Now, don't you believe that teachers and also parents put pressure on the students, and also there still be peer pressure because they're still in the same year and there's still higher classes to go to with this? Yeah.
Okay. So that's naturally hinging upon the idea that just because they're in the same school, peer pressure can still exist in the class, right? We thought that that's less likely to happen already because the classes then they have less of an incentive to actually interact with people who are from other classes. We just have to fear that because necessarily we have to concede that when you sit beside a smart person, you are more likely to ask that person what is the answer to this question as compared to when a smart person is way far away. We tell you that this kind of opportunity is much prevalent under our paradigm, right? So then the question becomes which outcome is more sustainable. We tell you that our outcome is more sustainable because we have to concede even if they are underachieving and they get bad grades, we tell you that it's usually exclusive that you always have a perpetuation of bad grades. But why is it that we have a sustainable benefit? These people facing that amount of pressure, facing that amount of incentive pressure from people who discriminate them, we tell you that this is like something that you cannot reverse. This is something when they are traumatized from being discriminated in the long run, even when they get out of school, after they fail SPM, this kind of incentive will still allow them to pursue education to its fullest. We tell you that this never happens under your side because the perpetuation of a toxic mindset that is set by lazy people to begin with. So what's the comparative? We tell you that the comparative that they have to cater to is a comparative of long-term benefits and which solution is much more systematically more beneficial for the students at hand.
All right, thank you for that speech. Let me just remind you that a POI can only be questioned at the first minute of the speech and ends at the 6th minute. So when I give clap, that's when you start to ask POI. I hope everyone understands. Now to end the substantive part of this debate, the opposition witness.
Adjudicators, worthy opponents, members of the floor. Now, what side government has brought to us is that there would be this perpetual cycle in which, if we separate people into two different bands where there are higher capabilities and lower capabilities, then it will be a perpetual cycle where all these lower capability people feel as though they never get to interact with the smarter students, and they also feel that because there's no competition in the system. So it's a perpetual cycle of them remaining in this mindset that they cannot achieve better because there's no competition. Well, what side opposition is trying to bring to the House attention is that competition will still exist for the very same reasons that if you're put in the lower band, you would feel a really strong urge to get into the higher band. You would want to work to get into the higher band. And so this competition still exists. It's not completely detrimental for them because there is still competition to get them to work towards a better goal. And so it's just as ridiculous as saying that if a poor person is stuck in a cycle of poverty, they would never come out of this cycle of poverty just because they're surrounded by poor people around them and there are no rich people for them to strive towards too.
Sure, competition.
So it doesn't really make sense because haven't all of us heard of the story where this poor person gets rich, and I mean poor people like have more fighting spirit in them to get to success one day. In fact, this even shows that the less capable students would want to strive just like the poor people to become better. So moving on, side government has also brought us a point that these students would have toxic relationships with people who are really complacent, and they would never get to interact with smarter students. Now, this is not really the case because what's preventing them from interacting with each other? Don't we have those friends that are from the next door class and we're still good friends with them because we can talk in recess and break? So that point would be kind of invalid because you can still make friendships with smart people as long as it's out of class and after school. And what else? Okay. Side government has also brought up a point that the school would be focused on getting elite students to achieve A's, and they will only push for all of these students to get A's for the reputation of the school. Now, does you really think that teachers have that little integrity? What's the point of even getting into the education industry if they don't see the point of teaching less capable students to become capable students? Isn't that the beauty of education? Seeing the whole process of a child who is less capable growing to become someone who's so mature and is able to fit into society and make their own opinions and become someone successful. Yeah, okay. And then at this point, are there any POIs before?
Sure, so we can see that competition is a middle ground. So both sides have competition, but the engagement of competition in our world is much more apparent to these children because they are surrounded by people who are also engaging with the competition. In your world, lazy people do not engage with competition.
Thank you, side government. And now what we would like to say to that is that while there are competition on both sides, and side government has pointed out that competition is stronger on without the streaming system, but all these people would feel sort of demotivated as well by if the competition gets really unhealthy and they feel like they're put in this class where it's everyone is, a majority of them is smarter than them. They won't be able to it's they would feel really oppressed. They would feel as though they can't receive the kind of tailored education for their own development. Yeah.
Sure.
Sorry. No, sorry. And what else has side government brought to us? Oh, side government has also brought up that it would be limiting the syllabus, as in if side opposition feels that there isn't really a limiting of syllabus. It's more if teachers in the first place evaluate these students and feel that they're not capable enough to get to that level, it's better that teachers teach them how to improve on the basics before they can even jump to that advanced level. Because if they don't have these basics, how are they going to complete the whole syllabus? At least if teachers teach them the basics first, they have these basics, at least there's still a chance that they can finish the whole syllabus and understand the whole syllabus. So we're not limiting them from completing the syllabus. If the teacher feels that, okay, this person has now improved and has gotten better, then she will move this person to the higher band so this person can complete the syllabus. This option is always open for them. Okay, so just to sum this up, what side opposition has brought to you in this argument is that not only will this still allow for competition, but it is much more focus because both sides get what they want. It's a win-win situation. If, for example, I am put in a class where everyone has the same needs as me, then the teacher will be able to teach better because it's more focused, and smarter students get to learn more, and less capable students also get to learn more. So it's a completely good situation because everyone gets to learn more. So, and plus, these weaker students are also given the chance to go back up into like the higher band. So it's a win-win situation. This is about talking about whether we want a world in which smarter students are sort of like cast aside, or we want a world in which everyone is given the opportunity to learn and everyone's given a focused education. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that speech. Now I'd like to welcome the opposition.
This debate is a question of equity versus equality. Side opposition has consistently vouched for people to get what they require to sustain. Fundamental fact, students who are less gifted require more help. The government side is detrimental to these students. The government side addressed how by removing this merit-based system, they'll be more keen to socializing, they'll be moving away from their shyness. But the side opposition already stated many times that by doing this, the students are subjugated to being berated, to being government side. Most of their arguments were purely based on assumptions and hypothetical situations that may never happen in a million years. Well, opposition side gave great examples such as tuition or Singapore and their education system. Government side did not realize that the demotivation caused by not separating these students into different ability-based classes where they would be sorted with people who are at their level, who are at their pace, that was constantly addressed by the opposition side, would be amazingly demotivating to these students because their capabilities of the individuals do not match up with the capabilities of the average. Competition will always exist. Opposition will always exist, and therefore side opposition has won this debate. Thank you.
Thank you for the speech. To end this debate, the government is live.
The concession coming from PM was clear. We can see that students are, that lowest class students are able to cope to some certain extent. But the reason to that was they were never simulated in the first place. They were never given quality education, and we gave you systematic reasons why schools, why parents association, why given that capital was a zero-sum game. Those are the reasons why the benefits they want to talk about never did exist, right? But two reasons why they lost any contention to this debate. The first, they never did engage. Two things that we can start in today's debate. The first, money is a zero-sum game. Capital that you push for extra classes. Some classes get more tuition than other classes in the expense of other classes not getting that. Secondly, parents association are built by rich parents where their children are mostly smarter. This means school will only lobby. Parents will only lobby to school to give more classes to the higher echelons of students. They never did engage with this. This analysis was important because it directly engages with the assertion of bad classes are equal to smart classes. This was basically, this was what their case hinges on, right? The assumption that students in low classes are able to engage and be as capable as those in the smart classes. We say that could never happen under your paradigm. Second reason why they lost in today's debate is they never attempted to change the status quo. So PM gave to you a good illustration of how students will stagnate, right? And they can never achieve more. And notice how LO give the analysis to this argument that the people who are usually in lower classes are people who are lazy are usually people in the bottom classes. So where's your change? We never got end to the problem that we gave you under our side. What they told you is that they could learn based on their pace, but never more than that, right? They never gave an end. So let's see what was the biggest contention in today's debate. Which side is able to push less capable students to do more and become more holistic? So, so what did opposition talk to you about this? They say competition. Competition only exists under our side because the fighting spirits to be better. An assertion. Firstly, this was very vague, but secondly, we gave you a better analysis on how our side achieved better competition, right? So students are required to engage in the first place. So this means it's not dependent upon their capabilities to imagine a world where their capabilities to be motivated, but there's actually external factors that push them. So like it was also contradictory for them to say that their success and lazy people's success to achieve higher was dependent upon their capability to have a good fighting spirit, while on the other hand, they talked about how there's lazy students and most of them are in the bottom classes. So why was our mechanism better? Is because they are required to engage, and this ensures engagement. Why? Because they are assimilated to smarter students and those other classes that you cannot handpick, or like you just cannot give back, or you need to give more classes to them, right? And then we talked about how this cannot exist or this cannot happen under our side because students felt oppressed. But they never told us they never gave an analysis to why they felt oppressed. So we gave you a good hint on why they felt oppressed was because they were never assimilated and they were never brought to close proximity to smart students in the first place. They never engaged with this contention. What was our analysis on this? The first, it's easier to homogenize and vilify it's easier to homogenize lower class students to be stupid people because there's a bigger proximity to do so. So the comparative to this, it's much more harder for you to verify these students as being stupid students when you are able to see that you're able to see their kinds of achievement and what they are capable of, right? So how did he engage with this? He never did engage with this, right? So the benefits that you get under our side is given that these students are put into closer proximity. All the benefits that you can acquire under our side is that the students are required to be as smart as their peers. With that, I am proud of the propose.
Thank you for that speech. That ends the debate. You may cross the floor and shake hands and please leave the room for a while. Thank you so much.